Hey everyone, my name is Johnson and I will be your moderator today, and wanted to say good morning, afternoon, and evening to all our folks who are attending from around the world. Thank you for joining us for our webinar, Accelerate and Simplify Your Media Asset Acquisition, Distribution, and Collaboration. Joining us today are Sanjay Jagged, Senior Director of Product and Solutions at Cloudian, and Doug Saltes, Director of Product Solutions at Storage Made Easy. Today, they'll explore what are some critical media asset challenges and discuss how to accelerate and simplify your media assets. If you have any questions, please send them all through the chat function, and we'll answer them towards the end during our Q&A session. So with that being said, gentlemen, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Johnson. Welcome, Doug. Great topic today. This is, we just coming off a very successful NAB, right? And this by far has been the hottest topic in terms of how do I manage all these media assets, right? And today we are going to take advantage of our partner solution out here with SME and talk about some of the critical challenges in the media asset management space and how we should go about managing this. So let's get started.
Yeah,
Doug, thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Sanjay. You say great to be here and talk with you today on some of these media asset challenges. You know, as you said at NAB, I think the growing consensus was like that poll question: people need to access their media faster. So yeah, let's get those results up on screen. So it seems like a couple of people are looking for to get off tape, which is something we're going to discuss today. And the second thing is, taking too long to restore assets. And we see that commonly because, again, some of these media asset managers, they just weren't designed to move data. And that's where SME is going to come in. But let's without further ado, get into some of the content.
Exactly, right. So let's talk about some of the state of the industry right now, right? So if you look at where we are, right, with the popularity of rich media, the proliferation of mobile devices, the digitization of content, there is a huge amount of data that is generated, right? This exponential growth in the amount of unstructured data means IT has new challenges on their hands to manage this data. And then now you look at adding to this complexity is the need around cloud, right? The move towards cloud, customers looking to take advantage of the various services and different cloud offerings, right? Be it AWS, be it Azure, be it Google. They want to seamlessly integrate their on-prem storage services with the cloud offering and be able to move data around. So all these things has now become a significant data management challenge. And to top off with that, you need to make sure that you're doing this in a very secure way. You're doing it so that you can further enable the collaboration and sharing that needs to happen. We are living in a global economy right now, and all these teams and all these media assets are then sub-projects are being worked from different places. So we need to make sure that that is easily facilitated from different locations. So managing data is a significant challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly worked with you at Cloudian on several sites where, they've got the opinion that the sun shouldn't set on their editing, their teams, their media. I mean, we see the 24-hour news networks and whatnot. And then, of course, with more cameras and higher resolution, deeper frame rates, that data is just exploding out there. So why don't we move into some of these pain points and challenges that we think that media asset managers are addressing today?
Yeah, so if you look at the summary, and this is validated by a lot of our customers that are actually using Cloudian storage along with our SME solutions. Also, based on all the interactions that we have had, we actually had a survey that we did at NAB, which confirms some of these findings, right? The IT practitioners are always under the pressure to accommodate this growth that we were talking about. Managing the growth and making sure the data is accessible as and when they need it is never easy, right? And as this data growth continues to outpace the growth, the IT budgets are not growing, right? And they need a brand new approach to their storage, and the traditional NAS and the SANs are not enough to take care of this. Now, the broadcast and the media industry need high capacity storage. There is no doubt about it. Right now, we're talking about the 4K videos, the 360, the 60 frame. This introduces a lot more greater storage challenges. So scaling storage capacity to meet this is one of the most important piece. The second piece is when you're talking about this kind of storage, now you are now trying to see finding the right piece of the media asset amongst these petabytes and petabytes of storage is not easy. I know that, and we'll talk about how we go about addressing some of these things. And we talked about sharing these assets so that you can securely share, so that you can work on those pieces, and then the cloud pieces, right? So all those combined, it really mandates that you think about this from a very different point of view, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of pain points, and so ultimately they've got media assets everywhere. They've got different tiers of storage, including tape. And what we want to help them today is to simplify that into maybe just a single type of storage solution to give them audited, clean access between the slides. So let's look at.
Let's just jump into this and let's look at the poll and see how would they like to, what are the challenges, right? What are the things that they are facing right now when it comes to acquiring and sharing the assets? The way I look at it, media is like the crown jewels for these companies, right? And that needs to be protected. Customers are not looking for managing different silos. They want a single unified solution that can support the workflows and allow them to securely access and share that assets.
Right. But along with these workflows, what we're talking about is how do you get the media assets into your environment? Clearly, if you're at a remote site, people have in the past shipped tapes and hard drives. Some of them might be using some sort of content accelerator, or there's that meet in the middle approach of using the hybrid cloud. And it seems like, again, here we weren't asking what you're currently doing. We're asking what is it you want to do. And what people want to do is they want to move their data over some sort of IP-based network that's going to give them direct access into the storage and make sure it's quick. Or they're going to, for security reasons, they're going to meet in the cloud, right? They're going to meet in that public cloud option. And so maybe, Sanjay, you can walk us through a media workflow.
Yeah. So let's talk about a very simplistic media workflow. So if you look at a very high level, we are now talking about ingesting. This is basically in the field where you are basically producing this content, creating this content needs to be ingested, captured, right? So you require a solution that can then ingest at a very fast rate. So the content creation process, and then you talk about all the things that you need to do in terms of processing, doing all the transcoding pieces, and then at the high level, just using some way to distribute this, right? So you acquire your assets from different sources, be it your tapes or cameras. People, as you said, are looking the old ways of I have this tape drives that I bring them in, I wait for them to get loaded. And that's not what people want. People want something that can be done as fast so that they can get to their production in that cycle.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, it's not very secure to ship those assets. I mean, I know it's quick, but if that FedEx package delivers to the wrong site, that's not very secure. And so, SME is going to help with that ingest, the acquisition into the applications that they're going to use.
Exactly. And now you have your applications, which are your production applications or pre-production applications. Also, getting that data into a solution, something like Cloudian, which is basically a highly scalable enterprise storage platform for media workflows that can cover multiple sites, that allows you to now store this huge amount of data and make it accessible for different people at different sites in a very secure way, so that they can get to their post-production services or media asset management workflows, right? Where if they have to create projects or they have to create certain copies of the data or maybe give it to the developers, they can all those things on a centralized storage platform, right? And then they need, once that data has been processed or transcoded, how do you get them to, it's no longer just sending out reels to the movie theaters, right? The media has been consumed in different formats right now.
Sure. You gotta monetize that media, right? Exactly. So you spent all the time and effort to film it, to edit it, to get it out there, and so you gotta get it to people that can make money with that media. And that's really, again, where SME is going to fit into the picture to help you pull that data off the Cloudian cluster and get it out to those that can use it.
Yeah, and then if you need to move it to a public cloud, you need to weigh a simple solution that allows you to transparently move to any of the public cloud of your choice, right? You know, like we talked about vendor lock-ins on your storage, people are afraid of even cloud lock-ins, right? So they need a solution that is cloud neutral, that is format neutral, or they're not getting locked into proprietary technologies. And this is the beauty of our solution, as we talk more in the upcoming slides, is how we prevent that proprietary formats and be able to give the flexibility to the customer.
Yeah, I think that's what we hear all the time, right? So we hear everybody want that public cloud approach where their data is always available, it's highly durable, and it's incredibly cost effective. But what they're afraid of is actually putting it out there in the cloud, right? We have a number of hacks. We see people open S3 buckets. And so, you know, we love working with the Cloudian solution because it gives them all of those capabilities on site. It's scale out, it's highly available, it's extremely durable, and it's multi-region. It literally has everything that S3 cloud from Amazon has.
Yeah, so from this perspective, you see the red box out here on the Cloudian solution. Let's take like peel this onion and go a little bit deeper into this, right? So as I mentioned, our solution is basically an enterprise storage platform for the media workflows, right? And this is right from ingesting files, like, you know, be it your applications like Adobe, Avid, which basically is where you are working on your files, right? And then you want to acquire those assets and manage them, right? This is where your MAMs come into place, or even acquiring some of this legacy tape archives that have been brought into storage, so that now you can index that content, you can enrich that metadata, and then make it easily searchable so that you can monetize those assets, right? So that's what they're going to spend time. This is the demo that we showcased at NAB, and that resources will be shared at the end of the webinar. So please make sure that you take a look at some of those pieces.
Right, so, you know, it's the Cloudian's at the core. It's the storage, it's available everywhere. What you need to do is you need to have a strong subset of application partners, which Cloudian has done, because as far as I know, you are the top level of S3 compliance in the industry, of which SME is just one of these partners that's going to enable these media workflows. Maybe you can talk about a few of the other
Exactly, right? So the partners, if you look at it, this is just a small subset of the partners that we work with, right? As I was explaining, we work with the applications like Adobe's and the Avids of the world. Then we work with the media asset managers like the Everts, Bizarti, EMAM, and also the enterprise
transcoding engines,
exactly,
right?
transcoding engines,
Vantage, FFmpeg,
exactly, and then the traditional infrastructure components, like, you know, where you're talking about quantums of the world, where you're now storing StoreNext and integrating with StoreNext, so that you can become that archive tier to a StoreNext file system, or with Veritas or with Commvault, so that you can back up from that tape media assets and bring them back onto your Cloudian store, right? And then SME, which allows you to now not only just offer a file interface, but also a collaboration suite that allows you to then work on those assets from different places.
Yeah, we like to think of ourselves as part of your complete breakfast, and obviously that's going to involve a MAM, it's going to involve, you know, ingest, other storage engines, editing engines, and so I think you've a really strong picture here of partners that are going to help that media asset.
In the M&E space, partner ecosystem is the biggest thing, and that's what we're proud on. right?
So let's explore a little bit more the Cloudian HyperStore and what that means to media asset managers.
So so that's a great segue, right? So let's talk about the actual solution, right? So in short, as I mentioned earlier, Cloudian is an enterprise on-prem storage platform for your media workflows, right? We offer an on-prem native S3 object storage platform with the ability to also support and offer a NAS controller on top of it to support some of the legacy applications that require file, right? It's a very simple modular architecture, so you can start off small, right, and then be able to scale and grow as and when you're needed. You can grow this within a single data center. You can grow this across multiple data centers, or you can grow this into the cloud via hybrid or multi-cloud, right? So it gives you that complete flexibility in terms of data management, brings you that economics that I was talking about, right? You start small, you can then grow, so you don't have to just go in for a big and then the solution itself, by nature of its architecture, is highly durable, right? When you're talking about media being your crown jewels, you want to make sure that you protect that, right? You want to make sure that the data is always available no matter what, right? Even if your data center goes down. And that is what Cloudian solution is all about. A highly scalable, highly durable, enterprise on-prem object storage solution with the ability to leverage and integrate with any of the public clouds out there.
And so when you talk about scalability, what you're talking about here is different than other systems out there, traditional files that are scale up, where you just add some more disks to them and whatnot, but they only have two controllers, one's active, one's passive, or maybe they're both active, but really they're doing things passively. In a Cloudian-based solution, every single node is always active. All of your data is available from every node, and even across all regions with a single namespace. So, from that point of view, that scale out makes it just a totally different option than what I think others have used in the past.
Exactly. So if you look at the traditional solution, that's what I said in my earlier slide, the traditional SAN and NAS solutions, the legacy architectures, are simply not ready for when you're talking about the scale of data that needs to be managed, right? There are limitations on the file systems. File systems bring in their own limitations in the kind of metadata they can have associated with it. And then to be able to search through that files, you're always relying on the applications. Whereas in this case, the object storage offers rich metadata, means you have a metadata that allows you to quickly search this. You can also build in and enhance this metadata with custom metadata through integration of AI and machine learning engines, right? You can scale this non-disruptively. You don't have to worry about any forklift upgrades. You don't have to worry about migrations that you are always facing when you're talking about traditional NAS boxes, right? And it's zero downtime, right? Complete data protection. You start off small, and scale up to multiple petabytes. We have customers who are actually in excess of 30, 40 petabyte clusters right now using Cloudian. So it's an enterprise solution that offers rich features, right? You talk about to do policy-based data protection, right? So not every data is same, right? So you want to make sure that you are managing this data at a granular level. You have a scale-out solution that always, in order to take the most out of it, has to be a multi-tenant solution so that you can have different groups, different people working on it. You have quality of service associated with it so it can deliver on the performance, right? Now, the scale-out solutions, the value is when you scale performance linearly, right? So you can now ingest data at a very high rate. In fact, we have shown the ability to ingest at very much at line speed, right? When it comes to on 10 gig networks or 40 gig networks, it gives you the flexibility in terms of deployments, right? You can do this on-prem in a single data center. You can have a cluster spread out between multiple data centers. You can do this as a hybrid cloud. You can do multiple clouds. It gives you all that flexibility with the ability to then, on a policy base, move data between the sites or between the cloud. And the last, but the most important thing is analytics. Now you have this repository of data. You can now take advantage of the metadata, integrate into different ecosystems like, Elasticsearch, and then be able to quickly find those assets that you're looking for and feed it into the application ecosystem that we have working with. So a complete enterprise solution, and this is why customers use Cloudian.
Sure. I mean, this is a next generation storage system in that it's scale out, it's got the durability and the performance, but it's also using what you would consider to be a next generation protocol or API. So, CIFS, NFS, they've been around forever. S3 was written for the internet, for the cloud. It's always encrypted, it's always secure. It has a number of features that are just not there in traditional protocols. And I think that that's really where everybody's moving. They're moving their storage not just to a system that's going to protect it more, but a system that can do more with the communications, meaning they can communicate over, a lossy line, or they can have that throughput because the S3 protocol is made to have hundreds or thousands of simultaneous connections. It's just literally built for the cloud. And so, when we're looking at that, I think the next question comes up of how do you accelerate and simplify your media asset acquisition, distribution, and collaboration with a solution like Cloudian? And so what I want to talk about today are really, three use cases: the asset acquisition, monetization, what you talked about of the ingest and distribution, the tiering of assets. So, we know that traditional media shops today are going to have a number of different tiers and types of storage. We want to replace it all with Cloudian. And so how do you get there? And lastly, the collaboration piece of it. So if we look at asset acquisition and monetization, as we talked about in an earlier slide, we've got our content creators. And then, of course, we have our distributors, our syndicators, our monetizers. And we had an earlier poll question, and we asked about how do you want to move your data around? And people want to either do it system-to-system accelerated, or they want to do the meet in the middle approach. And that meet in the middle approach is going to use things like Amazon S3 or Google, Azure, FTP, SFTP, Webdav, traditional protocols. So the way that SME works is we're going to sit in front of Cloudian, and we speak the Amazon S3 protocol, obviously. We also speak the Google protocols, whether that's the Google Cloud Storage or even the Google Drive. We speak the Microsoft protocols. This can be Azure, this can be SharePoint, this can be Webdav, OneDrive for Business, you name it, we speak those protocols. Traditional protocols that you see in media and entertainment, FTP, SFTP, Webdav, we're going to, no matter what protocol it is, it can be over 60 different types of cloud or on-prem protocols, we are going to convert that into the S3 API so that you can work with any provider in the cloud and your Cloudian on-site.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing, converting it into S3. And S3 has become more of a de facto.
It is the de facto standard.
Right? And it's an open thing. It's, even though we associated with Amazon, it's become a de facto standard when it comes to accessing object storage. And when the data is moved in, that's basically you're not locking it down in a proprietary format. That is the key piece out here.
Absolutely. So today, as we said, there are different tiers of storage. You've got your tier 0 storage, which is your SSD or SSD accelerated storage, and then you've got your tier 1, tier 2 storage. And for the most part, Cloudian is going to fit into that tier 1, tier 2 storage. And so another thing that we do is we can move data between your internal asset tiers. So you've acquired the storage, maybe had that meet in the middle, somebody put it out in a Amazon S3 bucket, you've pulled it into your Cloudian, but now you want to go and edit it. And so you've got it on some other type of tier 0, tier 1 storage. Maybe that's the Quantum Store Next that you talked about before, that's accelerating the
or
storage.
your all-flash storage.
Or all-flash. And so you've got it there, and you want to move it between Cloudian, which is going to be your nearline, your archive, and you want to move it into that tier 1, tier 0. And so we have a technology, it's the transport acceleration. It's going to work both externally and internally. I'll show that in a demo later. And it's called MStream for media streaming. And what it's saying do is it's saying break those media files up into pieces, and whether we're moving into Cloudian, if we're moving into Cloudian, we use something called MPU, which is the standard in S3 for uploading. If we're going to be pulling out of Cloudian, we have technology kind of like what you maybe associate with BitTorrent or something to pull multiple streams simultaneously down to traditional base file systems and reassemble those streams in parallel in real time. And then really, for SME, our bread and butter, it's kind of in our DNA, is the collaboration sharing piece. And so we came from being a enterprise file sync and share system. We know collaboration, we know sharing. We have clients for Android, for desktops, we have a web-based interface, so that if you have teams that are working in the field and in the office, they're going to be able to work on the same media assets. They're going to be able to move them around accelerated. We even have the capability to share like in that Dropbox kind of style where you send out a link. So, maybe you're a news organization and you have an anonymous source. That anonymous source wants to give you some documents, some files and whatnot. You don't want to make them a user on your system. You just want to send them a shared link where they can get that data into the system. And so we're going to cover all the collaboration sharing aspects as well for your media workflow. And the way we're going to do this is with three key features. The first one is MStream that I talked about a little bit before. That's going to be the parallel movement of data. I also want to talk about our native access file in, object out, and our deep content search. And so the first thing is, how do we move data in a high performant manner? So this can be, again, from the cloud to on-premise, from one on-premise type of storage, so maybe your tier 1 to your tier 0, or it can be from something on-premise or the cloud to an individual user's laptop, which can be on-premise or out in the field. No matter what, we're going to secure it. It's going to be encrypted. It's going to be using, TLS version 1.2 and the latest ciphers out there. But MStream breaks that data into multiple streams of data, because we already talked about the S3 API and Cloudian being really good at handling multiple simultaneous streams of data. And it's going to accelerate all of your file transfers.
This is another area where, Doug, if you look at the what is the difference between Cloudian and some of the other S3 storage, it's that ability to support the different aspects of S3 API calls, right? The multi-path upload, the signature V4, the compatibility around S3 is very critical, right? It's just having an S3 storage is not enough, right? It has to be able to support some of those inherent capabilities that translates into tangible business outcomes. So in this particular case, to be able to ingest a large amount of data in parallel streams so that you can speed up this transaction, right? So when customers are evaluating a storage platform, it's not just looking at the specs and saying, is it an S3 storage, but it has to look into the different aspects of the enterprise readiness that really constitutes towards the solution.
Absolutely. So, another key aspect there is that we don't have to proprietize the data in any way or shape when we're dealing with Cloudian storage. So if Cloudian didn't support all of the S3 API and we couldn't use MPU, we'd have to chunk the data. Now, if we chunk the data, that means that other applications in that slide you had before, we can't all play together. Nobody can proprietize the data if we want to be able to put our data into a Cloudian bucket and have, your MAM or your transcoders pull that out. Likewise, we believe in encryption in flight. Well, that's easy enough handled because you're a RESTful API, so are we. We're always handling the data via HTTPS and securing the data, but we also want encryption when it lands, right? So the data at rest has to be encrypted. And there's two ways we can handle that. The first one is I can proprietize the data. I can encrypt the data before it lands on Cloudian, but I don't need to do that. And the reason I don't need to do it is because, again, Cloudian supports the S3 API calls around encryption. So those are going to be SSE for server-side encryption and SSEC where you bring your own key. And so that means that these other applications using the same API, we don't have to proprietize any data, and yet it's going to be on your Cloudian box. It's going to be encrypted. That means if somebody pulls a hard drive out, throws it in the trash bin, you don't have to worry about that data leak. Or even if somebody was to do something really silly and make a publicly open bucket with SSEC without the key, you don't get those kind of Amazon S3 stories that we hear in the news of somebody left a bucket exposed and you could download millions of records or video media files in this case. And so we absolutely believe in the S3 API, using it completely natively and not proprietizing any of the data so that we can play in this ecosystem. And I do understand that hey, we're talking Amazon S3, we're doing file in, we're doing object out, but I think there's more to the story when we're talking about Cloudian.
No, and as I said, right, it's not just the ability to do S3. We talked about all the enterprise features. We talked about the ability for us to support some of the file applications, right? In this diagram, you have some applications which are like Adobe, which basically are traditional video editing softwares that basically speak the NAS protocols, right? And the ability to take that files and then be able to store them as S3 objects, so that now you can have the ability to associate that file with rich metadata is very, very valuable, right? In the old legacy environments, it would be like files would be stale. The application may have the intelligence around what that file is and the tags associated with it. But what happens when you move that file through the workflows and to the different life cycle? What happens to that metadata? That metadata needs to be associated with the file or with the objects, and this is what Cloudian does, right? When we store this thing, we store the metadata. We can enhance the metadata through AI and machine learning and make that metadata be available for the life cycle of that particular media asset. So wherever you move it, in transcoding, in any of the editors application, in the media asset managers, you still have that rich metadata so that you can quickly identify what that file and objects are and be able to pull them as and when needed.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what we're saying too. People want a Google-like search function.
Exactly.
And they want it against that metadata. And again, that's what a lot of MAMs do traditionally. And I'm not saying that you should throw out your MAM, but we clearly saw on one of our previous poll questions that moving that data through the MAM is a bottleneck. It's something that can interfere. And that's because a lot of the MAMs, maybe when they're talking S3, they're not doing parallel streams. They're not doing MPU. But when you're using SME, when you put content on us, we are indexing that content, and this is something we call deep content search or metadata indexing with deep content search, where, and I'll demo this later, if you put a PowerPoint, if you put a Word document, if you put something in the system that has not just file name and your traditional type of metadata, but it's got data inside of the objects, we're going to be able to extract that and give you that Google-like search function for that metadata. And again, we want to play with the whole environment. So that metadata is now available to other applications out there. And that's because Cloudian and the S3 API do something that file systems don't. They have metadata.
Exactly. And that is the key word, right? Google-like search of your media assets. When you're talking about millions of objects, you're talking about petabytes of storage. And this is the most important piece, right? The legacy environment is, let's say you have stored this on some of the tape drives out there. You have to now bring these tapes in, restore them, go through the file and find out what that asset is. And it takes days, if not weeks. Now with this, you can now do this in seconds, right? You just basically pull up this Google-like search and then quickly search on this metadata and be able to retrieve the content that you want. It's as simple as that. And this is the value of the next generation media solutions. And this is where Cloudian brings in tremendous value.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's not something we can necessarily take advantage of with some of your more traditional types of storage. Now, there are other enhancements in Storage Made Easy that are going to make it easier for folks in the media world to use us. I'm going to demo our web interface, but of course, we have native clients for iOS, Android, Apple, Mac, Linux. Security. Security is of top importance. I know we've already talked about this a little bit. I'll do one quick slide on that. And then, of course, the secure sharing aspect. So when we're talking security, especially after some of the hacks that have been out there, what media folks want is the ability to discover all of their objects. And so when SME indexes your already existing data or when we index what's in Cloudian, again, there's no proprietization of data. You can have it, we can index it, we can find it, and then we can do that deep content search, and we can actually alert you to certain types of, PII or other type of data that's mixed in there. We're going to govern it, meaning that you're going to be able to set up policies, so ACLs. So normally when you're talking S3 API, you're doing IAM. And when you're talking CIFS, you're doing, maybe the Windows type of ACLs. We're going to give you a common ACL-based system for all of your media assets, no matter what type of storage they're on. We're going to identify anytime somebody touches that. We have a complete audit log. That audit log is going to let you know who touched what asset from what IP, when they did it, again, what tool they were using to do it. And then based on that, you're going to be able to protect and monitor. We've got something called a audit watch. So I don't have that in my demo, but for example, that meet in the middle approach. You've got a Amazon S3 share out there, maybe somebody's putting data into it, and you want to receive an alert anytime a file gets put into that. Or maybe you've got a honeypot out there, and anytime somebody touches that honeypot, you're looking for somebody hacking you, you want an alert to that. And then of course, the sharing aspect of this, the ability to have non-employees, somebody that's not being authenticated by, SAML, LDAP, Active Directory, either receive files or put them into the system is again one of the core aspects of our system. And so, without further ado, I'd like to give a quick
let's jump into the quick demo and let's showcase the power of our solution.
Sure. All right, guys. So if you're seeing my screen right now, you're seeing the Storage Made Easy solution, and let me just show you what we're viewing. So I currently have some assets in the cloud. These are with my AWS partner, and so these are in Amazon S3 storage. It's up in Oregon. I've got my Cloudian solution here. I've got my production video files, and then I've got that tier 0 storage, right? That SSD system. In fact, this could even be Hyperfile. And so I've got a number of different types of storage that we're working with. And so to start with, that acquisition piece. So if I look in my AWS partner folder, I can see that, somebody shared with me Big Buck Bunny, which is, common in this industry to play around with. I've got it for VR, and I've also got it native here, 60 frames per second, 4K. If I want to watch this, I can double click it and right in the browser, I guess I need Flash enabled. But normally I'd be able to watch that asset, render it, transcode it in real time. Let me just do a refresh on my browser. All right. So let's say I want to take these assets and I want to bring them into my on-prem Cloudian system. So again, these are up in the cloud. I'm going to pick this folder with Big Buck Bunny. I'm going to hit copy so we have a nice, easy to use interface. I'm going to move this to my large video files in production and hit copy. Now here's what we're doing in the background. None of this data is flowing through my laptop. This is a web interface. I could shut down my laptop right now, walk away. And the File Fabric, the SME solution, is taking these assets from the Amazon S3 bucket in the cloud and moving them on premise into a folder here called Big Buck Bunny. And when I'm looking at this, it's being accelerated by MStream. So I can see this task here, and I can see that I'm moving the first file of 2. And once that data is in the system, I can do anything I want with it. I can continue to work on it. I can move it to tier 0 storage. So let's look now at data that's already in my system. Maybe I'm the archivist of my system, and I'm looking for a particular media asset. And so if I'm looking for a particular media asset, there are several ways I can do it. Now, maybe I have a well-organized file system. Maybe I have a media asset manager, but maybe I just want that Google-like search. And so, for example, if I'm looking for something like the webinar that we're doing right now, I can search for text within a file. So I've got this the webinar that we're doing right this second, the PowerPoint deck. Obviously, I searched for your name, Sanjay, and I found, not in the title of it, but I found that in the metadata, in the actual slides, there are multiple references to you. So now, Sanjay, when you and I were at NAB, we did a quick production of Romeo and Juliet. And so if I'm the archivist and I'm looking for a line of script that you and I had in that, I can type in, I talk of dreams. There we go. and I can find that content in the script. So you can imagine I'm an archivist, I have my media assets, and I put the scripts or the closed captioning in with those pieces. And when I do, I'm able to do a quick search. I'm able to find it. If I want to view it, I can launch it right here in the web browser, or I can pop up a window, with the entire Word file with the script that you and I, ran through, or I can find it in my system. So it happens to be right here in my production videos on Cloudian. And so I've got I happen to record this using ScreenFlow. That's why I use not Avid. And if I wanted to, I can move this to my tier 0 for editing. So let's say somebody wants to edit Romeo and Juliet. Again, I just check it off and I say, you know what, I'm going to put this into my tier 0 storage. And as simple as that, I've kicked off another mStream task in the background. Now, multiple users could be using this at the same time, but all of those assets are going to now be user-initiated tiering, move between that tier 1, tier 2 storage, which is my Cloudian bucket, and my my tier 0 system. Now, of course, I'm using a web browser right now. We have tools for Windows and Mac. And why don't I jump into my Windows tool? So I'm on a Windows system now. This Windows system, I have the same system mapped as an S drive. And you can see I've got the exact same assets, but now listed as folders. So I have that AWS storage. I've got my 2 Cloudian buckets that are now being shown as folders. And I've got that tier 0 storage. And so I could go into my tier 0 storage. I've got that Romeo and Juliet. But maybe I'm supposed to work on season 5, episode 5 of the show that you and I produce. And so I can look in there. I can see that I've got a large media file in here. It's about 3 gigabytes. And so I want to actually work on it, against my desktop. I want to take this home. Maybe I have an SSD drive that I've attached. And so all I simply need to do is right-click it, hit copy, and I can copy it right here to my high-speed drive. And to show you mStream in action, I kind of like to use Windows Explorer or the Task Manager function under Performance. So you can see I have a 1 gig Ethernet line, and right now I'm essentially saturating it. I'm pulling that 3 gig asset down to my local machine to work on, and what we've done is we've split this into parallel streams, and they're all being pulled down and reassembled simultaneously. And if I had a bigger pipe, obviously I could fill a bigger pipe, but the constraints of this demo environment are that I have 1 gig. And so, as quick as that, I've already pulled down this 3 gig asset, and Windows Explorer is still catching up, but I've got that asset. It's now on my system. I could start working on it and editing it. And then, we talked a little bit about the bimodal, the ability for file in, object out. And so if I log right into my Cloudian system, I've got all the different buckets. I can go into this one called Proxy Videos. Under Marketing, I believe I have a folder called Cloudian. There we go. I don't have any assets in it right now, but if I was to just quickly upload a couple of pictures, so I've got a couple of Cloudian logos that we're going to upload. So those are nice and quick. If I jump back into the file manager and I go to that exact same directory, so Proxy Videos, Marketing, Cloudian, we're going to be doing a real-time refresh, and I can already see those assets in the system. In fact, we've even created thumbnails. I can click through, I can preview them, but again, the file in, object out, in this case that was object in and now kind of file out. If I want to open that directory and grab that fourth picture of the HSA 4000, which is a great appliance from Cloudian, I think, what is that, half a petabyte or more?
It's like about close to a petabyte, about 850 terabytes.
So I've uploaded that. I can switch back to my Cloudian CMC. Now this could be other appliances as well, right? So this could be your MAM from PrimeStream. This could be CyberDuck. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as everybody plays in the native S3 format. Let me just refresh this. Go back in that Cloudian folder, and so you can see that now I have that HSA 4000 as a new document in here. I can even delete things from the Cloudian side. and that's going to be pretty instantly reflected on the SME side if I go hit refresh here, just to refresh my screen. And everything's cleaned out.
So that's the value, right? When you want to take that file data and make it available as an object and vice versa, right? You're not locking down in any format, you're not locking down any access, or making sure that you're taking the advantage of both the technologies. Files for still working with some of the applications that you may have, using the object storage for its scale and everything else. So great story, great solution.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting this quick demo for us, right? And I think the people on the webinar should have enjoyed looking at this and seeing the power of the solution.
Yeah, and I mean, there's far more we can do. We could jump into sharing and whatnot, but we're limited on time, so I really want to hit those key points: acquire, tiering, and collaboration. And I think that, in a nutshell, that demo covers everything. So why don't we go back and see what questions we currently have in the queue.
Yeah.
Let's get our slide deck back up, and is it time to bring Jonathan back on the line?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you guys. That was awesome.
Well, thank you for your time today, guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And do let us know. You have our contact information. So if there's anything else that you need, feel free to reach out.